Long before Eve was ever molded from a rib, there was another woman, one whose name has been buried under centuries of silence, fear, and myth. That name is Lilith. She does not appear in the Bible most people read today, but her presence looms in the shadows of ancient Jewish texts and mystical traditions. The Alphabet of Ben Sira, an anonymous medieval text compiled between the 8th and 10th centuries, is the first source to tell her story explicitly. But hints of Lilith can be traced back much further, to Babylonian demonology and Sumerian legends. In Mesopotamian myths, figures resembling Lilith, called Lilitu or Ardat Lili, were female wind spirits or demons. These beings were associated with seduction, night terrors, and the untamed feminine. They were said to prey on men and newborn children. Over time, Jewish folklore merged these older images with its own cosmology, and a new figure took shape. A woman who once walked in Eden as Adam's equal, but refused to bow to him. The Talmud, an ancient collection of Jewish law and lore, mentions Lilith not as a wife, but as a dangerous winged creature. In Tractat Shabbat, it is said, "It is forbidden for a man to sleep alone in a house, lest Lilith seize him." Already we see her framed as a lurking danger, but Ben Sira dares to do something radical. It places her not in the margins, but at the very beginning of humanity's story. According to the Alphabet of Ben Sira, God created Lilith at the same time and from the same earth as Adam. Unlike Eve, who was shaped from Adam's rib while he slept, Lilith was made as his equal, not his extension. In this version of creation, they stood side by side, both fashioned from the dust of the ground. There was no hierarchy, no second place. But equality in theory did not lead to peace in practice. The text tells us that Lilith and Adam quarreled frequently. The heart of their conflict? Who would be dominant? When Adam insisted that he be the one to lie on top during sex, Lilith refused. She argued, "Why should I lie beneath you? I was also made from dust, and am therefore your equal." Adam would not yield, neither would she. Frustrated and determined not to live in submission, Lilith made a bold and terrifying choice. She spoke the ineffable name of God, a name so holy that to utter it was to access divine power, and with that, she rose into the air and fled the Garden of Eden. This moment was more than just a marital dispute. In the ancient mind, names held power. To speak God's true name was to step into the sacred and forbidden. Lilith's act was a profound rebellion against patriarchy, against divine order, and against any system that demanded she shrink herself to fit within it. When Adam saw that she had left, he cried out to God. 3 angels, Sinoi, Sansanoi, and Samangeloth, were sent to retrieve her. They found her by the Red Sea, a place rich in symbolic meaning, chaos, danger, wilderness, and freedom. There, according to the Alphabet of Ben Sira, Lilith had already begun consorting with demons and giving birth to hundreds of offspring each day. The angels commanded her to return to Adam. She refused. As punishment, they declared that every day, 100 of her children would die. Lilith, heartbroken but unyielding, accepted the consequence rather than return to a life of subjugation. This is the point at which Lilith's story fractures, half legend, half curse, half warning, half symbol. And it is here that she begins her transformation from a liberated woman into a feared demon. Once Lilith rejected the divine order of Eden, Jewish folklore took a dark turn with her image. Over time, she came to be seen not as a figure of strength or independence, but as a threat. She was no longer the first woman. She became the first seductress, the first killer, the first mother of monsters. In mystical Jewish texts, such as the Zohar, a foundational work of Kabbalah, Lilith was cast as a succubus who seduced sleeping men and stole their seed to create demon children. She was said to cause infant death and miscarriage, and in some tales she crept into bedrooms at night to strangle newborns. Amulets were inscribed with the names of the 3 angels to ward her off. In some homes, children wore protective charms to keep Lilith at bay. The fear of Lilith wasn't just about spiritual evil. It reflected deeper anxieties about female sexuality, power, and autonomy. She refused to be ruled by a man. She walked away from paradise rather than comply. That was dangerous. That was heresy. So the stories grew darker. She was blamed for sudden death, sexual temptation, infertility. She was often associated with the night, with owls, with desolate places. The book of Isaiah hints at her in a chilling prophecy about Babylon's desolation, stating, "The wild beasts of the desert shall also meet with the wild beasts of the island, and the satyr shall cry to his fellow. The screech owl also shall rest there, and find for herself a place of rest." In Hebrew, a screech owl is Lilith, a haunting echo of the first woman forgotten. By the time the biblical canon was finalized, Lilith was gone from the official story. Eve, molded from Adam's rib, became the mother of all living. Lilith was erased, reduced to folklore and feared in whispers. But her story persisted, told in margins, in myths, in mysticism. And today she is being remembered, not as a monster, but as a mirror reflecting the fear society has long had of women who refuse to submit, a mirror showing how ancient stories were shaped, not just by faith, but by control, a mirror asking, what if the first woman in Eden wasn't removed because she was evil, but because she was equal? This story isn't in today's Bible, but why do you think it was left out? You think